everybody, and welcome to our second podcast with Fernando Lopez. My name's Peter Forster, and today we're going to talk about training and racing in the heat, and especially Fernando's recent experience at the Marathon des-Sables, which is a multi-day event in the Sahara Desert. So what we're going to talk about is there's hot, then there's really hot. So welcome back, Fernando. Congratulations.
Yes.
Top 50 at the Marathon des-Sables out of 850 runners. Give us a little snapshot of that experience, and then we'll get into the heat and humidity.
Yeah. Hey, Peter. Hey, everybody. Fernando here, an athlete and also a coach here in Houston. And yes, I just got back from Marathon des-Sables, which is a multi-stage 7-day race in the middle of the desert, 253 kilometers, pretty much a marathon every day, and one day is two marathons. And I just got back actually a couple of days ago, and we wanted to give you some very fresh information for the heat and some of the circumstances that I raced on.
Yeah. So we live here in Houston, and that's the capital of hot and humid in the States, at least. And so we're fairly familiar with it.
Yes.
But this was a whole nother level altogether. And you know the reason we want to provide some tips to athletes who are going into hot environments is how to cope, how to train, and how to cope with the conditions. And we both raced in hot places, and we've had advantages coming from Houston.
Correct.
Like if you go to Kona, Hawaii,
Yes.
that's easy for us. But if you're coming from Canada or Northern Europe, it's a real challenge. So first of all, some metrics. There's temperature, there's humidity, and combined that gives you the heat index, which is how hot you're going to feel. And then there's a UV index, which is how intense the sun is.
Yes.
So in the Marathon des-Sables, just sort of talk about some of the temperature and humidity and how the heat was there.
So I know it's not part of the heat index, but there was also the wind and the sun, and that somehow influences at least the feeling of the heat. So I never checked exactly what temperature there was, although there was a guy that came to my tent and said, look at how hot it was. And he showed me his thermometer, and it was 60 degrees Celsius. I thought it was impossible, but he said he put it in the ground. And then the next day he came back and said, yes, it's very hot. So I don't know. It was just hot, okay? So you can feel it. You can feel it all the way, except the last day, by the way. And like you said, we race here in Houston. It's humid, it's hot, it's humid. Over there is not humid, it's dry, very dry. And that it's, good and bad. The good side of things is that being not being the humidity you get here doesn't let you breathe very well. Now over there was some altitude as well,
right?
And that played into how you feel when you were running. Pretty much. So
we've got a chart that we'll show on the podcast, and it's just a weather chart for temperature and humidity, and we've marked on there approximately where Morocco would be, where you were at in the Sahara, and then where it is relative to, say, Houston or Kona. And obviously much less humidity there, a lot hotter, and very big UV index. So, I'm very susceptible to the sun. I need to cover up a lot.
yes.
And that's a big factor for me.
Yeah, actually I'm very white, and actually I still have the marks on my head. So this is how hot it was, right?
Yeah.
This is how the sun, although I have protection sunscreen, but
right.
You could tell right now how.
So with the heat and humidity getting up there, a number of physiological changes are going to occur. Your blood's going to thicken, your heart rate's going to go up, and your body's going to compensate for that by sweating, by reducing the amount of work it wants to do. And that's fine up to a point. You can take strategies to deal with that, and we'll get right to those in a second, what Fernando did. But if it goes beyond that, your body starts to cook, which is like a heat stroke, and that's really, really bad.
Yes.
So there's general sort of heat exhaustion, and we can deal with that. But if it goes beyond that and you don't get ahead of the game, you can become seriously ill. So anyway, let's talk about some of the strategies that you used to deal with it. So we've talked about training. So being in Houston, you're already pretty warm, but
yes.
but not desert warm.
No, right. So I didn't do anything specific for that. Honestly, I just ran here at home, and I tried to simulate the last few days kind of the conditions I was going to face, but not in terms of the temperature, because I couldn't do anything about that. So that part, it was what it was, right? So,
yeah. Now, a lot of conventional advice is if you go into a very different climate, people recommend the ideal is you get out there about 10 days in advance,
right.
And that would allow you to acclimate. But very rarely do you get that opportunity.
Yes.
You need an awful lot of time on your schedule to do that.
Here, I arrived a couple of days before, and I did run actually one morning a little bit, just to kind of, like you said, face reality. But that was it.
Right. And as far as we can tell, the official temperatures, if you look on the Weather Channel for this part of North Africa, highs in the 90s Fahrenheit, but obviously very low humidity, less than 30%. So there we are. So training ahead of time, if you can, acclimate. If not, it's just tough. Some obvious things, and we brought some of the tools you use. So hats and sunscreens. Talk us about head cover.
Yes, so I had two options. One is my Forever Try hat, and it was black. I have it somewhere there. And but then I got this one from them, very light, and it was a good option. I did put my logo here. It was a good option because it was very light, and it had this extra, don't know what you call it.
So neck thing.
So just to cover your neck, basically. To be honest, I ended up rolling this up like this and run this way. And then when I was at the campsite, I was like this. The reason for not running with this, when you run with this, they flap around, and I don't know, I felt awkward.
Right.
So I was pretty much all the time like this. Now, when we talk about this, when we went through the checkpoints, they drop some water on you, and this would get wet, and put it like this for a few minutes was a good thing. So yes, so this was my...
That's your headgear, yeah. Now, for those of us with very pale skin, like me, and a history of skin cancer, this is like really critical. Obviously, I've got to cover up completely, and I tend to wear a big brim hat. But
yes,
I hate the little neck things. But if you've got a broad enough brim, that works pretty good.
Yes.
All right. Another thing is that conventionally, people talk about wearing light-colored clothing.
Yes.
There you are with your black T-shirt.
Yeah, this was my...
Now, what's the story here? Let's have a look.
Okay, so by the way, I did... this is my Forever Try T-shirt, and I wanted to use this one. And so we end up making a white one. Actually, I have it.
Right.
And so I had two choices. However, I did like this. This fabric is much soft for me. And before we went, Andrea, my wife, read that it's not necessarily true. She was reading why Arabics used all black colors, and you wonder.
Right.
And apparently, it's not exactly, the black colors will absorb the UV. I don't know the science behind it, but anyway, this worked for me. It was perfect.
What fabric is it? Is it a man-made or is it cotton?
It's a mix of cotton and polyester, I think, and actually it's an OGO brand, and I love it. I think the quality is great, and I can't complain. So this was my uniform most of the time.
Yeah, I find if I go medal
that everybody wants.
I personally, if I went outside now wearing this black T-shirt and it's like 80 or something outside, I'd be boiling.
Okay.
So I'm in the camp. I'll wear orange, fluorescent, white, whatever.
Most people didn't have black.
Right. But for you, that worked.
It worked.
That's the most important thing.
And I was okay. I did have some sunscreen in my neck, and that was it. The rest, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's talk about fluids. Obviously, when it gets hot, you get thirsty.
Yes.
You lose body moisture.
Right.
Let's talk about how much you were drinking, what you were drinking, and that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, this is a self-sufficient race. You have a backpack with all the food and everything else that you need to carry on with you all the time. So I did have 2 flasks here of 700 millimeters of water, one on each side of my backpack. I have water in one and something like scotch.
Let's look at that.
It's hydration.
Oh, right. Yeah, you mix that in with it?
Yeah, so I had 2. That was the first day. I realized this when this gets warm. I don't like it, so I didn't end up drinking it. That was day 1. Day 2 was a longer distance, and I took a flask in my hand. And what I did with the flask is, when I went through the checkpoints, I filled it up with water, and then I started taking little showers with it. I just pressed it here, and I was just putting some water on my lips was a good thing,
Right.
And then the third day, which was a longer distance, I took 2 of them. So I would go through transition, fill up my 2 flasks in my backpack, and then fill this up. And I was just showering myself. I was as wet as I could be in my neck, in my head, all the time. I didn't see many people doing that, so I thought that was great.
So
a great plan.
Yeah. Were you ever, at any point, run out of water? Or was there enough at the aid station?
No, I did not. I was managing that well enough that I did not run out of water.
Okay.
So there was one day, yes, that I was about to, and I focused on managing my water well enough to not run out of
Okay.
water. So.
And then you mentioned you had some electrolytes with this stuff. But you say you didn't use it very much?
No, not drinking it. In fact, a couple of times I'm not throwing it away, pressing my, the valve and just letting it go, because once this gets warm, it's not very
nice.
Very nice, yes.
So one of the dangers with taking on too much water,
yes,
is that condition called hyponatremia,
right,
where you flush all the salts out of your body if you're absolutely overdoing it.
I heard that. Yes.
Guilty of that once.
Yes. Oh, really?
Yeah, and too much drinking the day before a marathon, and it just flushed everything out.
Yeah, I'm not.
So you got to keep up the salts and the foods.
I don't drink much.
Right. I mean, that was the subject of our last podcast.
Yeah, right. And I have some stories about that in this race as well, on the nutrition side of things. So
how did you? So you had your drinks. What about food then, to keep up your salts and electrolytes?
As we discussed in the last podcast, I made the same either mistake or that's, I guess, the way I am. I did not eat much. When it was marathon distance, I ate a gel, maybe. Mm-hmm. In fact, a couple of times I got back with the same gel. And Andrea gave me some dry fruit, but very minimum, and I had that. Now, the long distance day, I got the salami stick.
Yes.
You guys know I like salami. from the last podcast, and I tried that, and it wasn't as I planned, but I had it as much as I can, and that was it. I didn't eat much, and that was not nice and not
terrific.
part of it.
Yeah. So another aspect of racing and training in the heat is your pace is going to be much less than going out for a nice long run on a cool day. What can you tell us about your pace experience?
So I didn't have a plan, as I always race with no plan, more or less.
You go by feel.
By feel, not looking at my watch or whatsoever. So my strategy was that when I had a do, and there were many, see if I could run it very slow, but otherwise just walk it up. And then start running again, and that was just the plan, right? So when I had a hill, I would walk it, and otherwise I would just keep running most of the time.
Right.
In the long stage 3 and 4, which is 2 marathons together, I did walk for the most part of the second half. It was exhausting. They give you 35 hours to do that stage. I did it in 13, so hence, reasons for walking.
Yeah, so just for comparison's sake, so a street marathon, you're doing 3 hours and something?
3 hours for the marathon, yeah.
Yeah, so you're a 3-hour marathon guy, and then remember, so the Marathon des Sables is over the rocky, sandy desert in the heat.
Right.
So on a typical marathon day of this, you were taking...
So I did 4 hours and a half.
Oh, wow.
The second day of the marathon.
Wow. So that's really not a huge...
No,
it's 50%, but it's... You didn't go from 3 to 12.
Yes, no. And the first day we ran... pretty much 19 miles, and I did 3 hours, just to give you a comparison.
Yeah. Okay, so you were moving.
Yeah,
so
I was moving.
No wonder, top 50.
yes, that's right.
All right. So, again, for athletes out there that were coaching and helping, who are not going to the Marathon des Sables, but a couple of other things that might be available to you at a race, or if you can stash stuff on a training route, is a bag of ice or some cold water to toss over your head, or put an ice pack in your hat on the top. But that wasn't something available to you.
Once you do this Marathon des Sables, you appreciate so much all they give you in any other race. I didn't realize how much they give you in an Ironman race, for example.
Right.
Because when you go through the transitions, which were only 2 or 3 in every stage, all they give you is water.
Right.
Plain water. And at the end, so it was just the water first, and then at the end, cold water only once, a little bit in your neck. If you ask for more, they say no. They give you only 1 shot, and that water was not drinkable.
Oh.
Okay, so it was just cold and
cold fluid,
and that was all. And now that have an Ironman this weekend, I was thinking, they give you all this stuff.
Chicken soup.
Yeah, chicken soup and the snacks and
flat
Coca-Cola and everything else. Yeah, none of that. So it's very different, right? Very different environment to run with. Yeah.
Crazy. Let's see what else we got here. So really, if you're facing a hot season and you want to train through the summer, or you're going to an event in a very hot, humid climate, I think the key things you need to remember is train for the heat if you can.
Of course, yes.
Use your hat and your sunscreen.
Yes.
You can wear a black t-shirt.
You may.
I don't.
I don't ever try one. Maybe.
Yeah. Plenty of this, plenty of water and electrolytes, and expect a reduction in pace And if you can get some ice, chuck it on your head as well, or a wet sponge down your t-shirt.
That's correct. So a couple of things on top of that. So I haven't seen many people doing what I do. And I strongly recommend fill one of these up, no matter what race there is. In fact, I might do it in this Ironman Texas. I never done it in Ironman Texas. And just, having the water, splashing it in your face is amazing. It's great. And I haven't seen many people. And this, having one of these is not a big deal.
Soft-sided.
Another thing I do in Ironman is when they give you ice, I put ice in my mouth to lower my temperature.
Right.
I do that all the time. We didn't have ice in Marathon des-Sables, so I couldn't do that. But that's what I do in hot races like the one this weekend.
Yeah. So here we are. You've just finished Marathon des-Sables, and then you're rolling straight into Ironman Texas. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've got my 50th park run 5K on Saturday. So my 5K is going to be what I'm doing. You're going straight into Ironman. Just incredible. But a super experience. And so many more stories to come out of Marathon des-Sables. I think we'll have to do a feature film.
Yes.
All the different aspects. But for today, I think this has been really beneficial for our athletes and viewers to get some key insights into how to deal with the hot weather and training and racing in very harsh climates.
That's right. That's our expectations, to give you some tips for your next race and making sure you have a good plan forward and do the right things, whatever that means, and have a much better experience, right? So, last comment on that is we're all different, right? You don't have to do what I do, like you wearing black or some of the things I mentioned about nutrition. Please don't do that if that's not how it works for you. It's similar to our last podcast, right? Do what works for you. I mean, yes, follow most of the rules, because some of them are basic, like using sunscreen, but also go by feeling. That's my best advice. Go by how you feel about it, and enjoy the race.
Excellent.
All right.
Good stuff, Fernando, as usual. Bye for now.
See you next one.